This document describes how to use AXES to help develop a strong literary analysis paragraph. So if you've already watched the video on using Level 1 Unity to improve the skeletal structure for a literary analysis, you're going to see that this body paragraph is actually taken from one of those topic sentences. So you'll be able to see how we can kind of take the skeletal structure and actually develop a body paragraph from that. So much like that other document, I've broken it into steps. So our first step, if we're going to use AXES, our first step is to compile the textual evidence. I should just say really briefly, if you haven't already watched the general video describing AXES, you might want to stop and go back and watch that video so you just know what the heck I mean when I say AXES. So I'll link to that as well. Okay, so assuming we all know what AXES stands for, then this will probably make more sense. So first off, we would compile our textual evidence. So we have our assertion there. In this case, the narrator in Plath's morning song displays feelings that contradict the societal expectation of an affectionate new mother. So what we would do is we would go through the poem and we would look for all the ways that we see the text illustrating this assertion. So maybe we see the symbolism of the near homophone in the title. Maybe we see the comparison of the baby to a statue in a drafty museum, or the description of cow heavy and floral in my Victorian nightgown, or maybe these actual lines here, I'm no more your mother than the cloud that distills a mirror to reflect its slow effacement on the wind's hand. So there's our evidence from the poem. The next piece, notice I have 4 here, you might have 5, you might have 3, you might have 2. So there's no magic number here for the example. Just get as much evidence as you can, and then we can cut out later on if the paragraph gets too long. Okay, we have our evidence, and now it's time to start explaining how the evidence actually proves your assertion. This is crucial. This is the piece a lot of times people miss, is they just list off their evidence and they think everybody's going to see their assertion as they do. So you want to make sure that you always take the time to explain how all your support, or in this case, examples, are proving your assertion. And a good thing to do is identify key terms in your assertion and then weave those key terms into your explanation as well. So here's our example, and you'll notice here that this is just, I literally took the example and then explained it, and then the other example and explained it. So this is not a paragraph yet. So there's our assertion, and I have here color-coded the different key terms. The narrator displays certain feelings. Plath is, of course, our topic. Contradicts the societal expectation. We have our first piece of support, the explanation then. The symbolism in the near homophone directs the reader to believe this mother is not ecstatic to have fulfilled what is considered her main purpose in society, namely to have a baby. So here's how we would explain that particular piece of example, that particular example in terms of the assertion. The next one about comparing the baby to the statue. So Plath physically distances the mother from the baby and presents a cold, unconnected, and unaffectionate new mother. Plath presents a mother who is unsure about her ability to perform the societal role expected of her. So there's our explanation in terms of this assertion. Our next example was this description of the nightgown. So this description is the most direct clue to Plath's critique of Victorian ideals of motherhood. Plath pairs this image of the Victorian nightgown with the unattractive adjectives of cow-heavy and floral as a means to tarnish this ideal. And then finally, we have our last one, which is those lines there about I'm no your mother. And the explanation, this blatant rejection of her new position as mother is perhaps the most disturbing for readers, as they see this new mother abdicating herself from the maternal responsibility and flatly contradicting the societal expectation of a nurturing, loving mother. So again, that's our explanation of how that piece of support develops this assertion. So now we're off to a really great start to this paragraph, and we've got, I wouldn't even say start, I think we have the bones of this paragraph, and now what we have to do is we just got to connect the ideas. So now we're off to step 3, which is transitioning. So we're going to transition. Of course, we can use those common transitions, but in a more sophisticated paragraph, we don't want to say first, second, third, right? We want to do something a little bit more sophisticated. So in terms of how you actually do that, how do you get that more sophisticated element? Consider adding language, again, from the assertion's key terms. So it's all about unifying here back to whatever claim is made in the assertion. So what I did here is I just put everything from step 2 here into a paragraph format and then linked them together with these bold terms. So the title of the poem is the first indication of the narrator's ambivalent feelings about motherhood. So we have a transition there as a full sentence, not just one word, but a full sentence that's transitioning. And a lot of times we see this, I sometimes call this a cushion statement. So how do we get from our topic sentence to our first piece of evidence? Well, the answer is oftentimes creating a cushion statement. And what you're doing there is you're just really kind of transitioning. And you'll see there, I'm just kind of repeating ideas and connecting it into our first piece of support. When we move to our next piece of support, so there's our explanation. We move to our next piece of support. Imagery is also used to illustrate the narrator's uncertain emotions, and then we get our support explanation, what I've called the example and explanation here. Then we have another transition. Notice here, this is just a one word, and that's absolutely fine. And then finally, we get to our last piece of support. So we've got a transition between each of these original pieces of support. So we're now really kind of close to being done with this paragraph. This is reading like a really strong analytical paragraph. The last little step here, we got to add our significance statement. So the significance statement, despite the era's social belief of the perfect Victorian mother, Plath speaker emotionally distances herself from her motherhood duties and hopes instincts will help her care for her baby. So there's our final kind of statement. So here we end up with our final AXES paragraph. And I'm just going to read it for you guys so you can really kind of hear. You can stop the tape now if you want, but I'm just going to read it for you so you can really hear what we mean by a strong analytical paragraph. So the narrator in Plath's morning song displays feelings that contradict the societal expectation of an affectionate new mother. The title of the poem is the first indication of the narrator's ambivalent feelings about motherhood. The near homophone of the title, Morning Song, can be heard as morning song and represents the narrator's feelings. This play on words directs the reader to believe this mother is not ecstatic to have fulfilled what is considered her main purpose in society, namely to have a baby. Imagery is also used to illustrate the narrator's uncertain emotions. The narrator compares her new baby to a statue in a drafty museum. Here, Plath distances the mother from the baby and presents a cold, unconnected, and unaffectionate new mother who is not emotionally prepared for the responsibilities expected of women at the time. Additionally, the narrator describes herself as cow-heavy and floral in my Victorian nightgown. This description is the most direct clue to Plath's critique of Victorian ideals of motherhood. Plath pairs the image of the Victorian nightgown with the unattractive adjectives of cow-heavy and floral as means to tarnish the ideal. Finally, Plath offers readers direct expression of the narrator's feelings about her baby. The lines, I'm no more your mother than the cloud that distills a mirror to reflect its own slow effacement in the wind's hand, indicate the narrator's lack of attachment and responsibility to her baby. This blatant rejection of her new position as mother is perhaps the most disturbing for readers, as they see this new mother abdicating maternal responsibility and flatly contradicting the societal expectation of a nurturing, loving new mother. Despite this era's social belief of a perfect Victorian mother, Plath's speaker emotionally distances herself from the motherhood duties and hopes instincts will help care for her baby. So there we have a nice, strong, analytical paragraph. It's got a clear claim, it's got good evidence, it's got good explanation, it has a concluding statement. I want to note to you guys, notice how long it is. If you have short little paragraphs, you know you have some sort of problem there. Oftentimes, if the paragraphs are short, it's because the claim itself didn't set up a big enough job for the support to be doing, so it's too narrow. Or maybe it's only stating a fact. Another reason why a paragraph can get too short is because we didn't have enough evidence compiled at the very beginning of the process. So I hope this illustration here really gives you a good model of what a A-level body paragraph looks like for literary analysis. As always, email me if you have questions.